Welcome to this VolShield threat intel briefing. Today we are doing a deep dive into a security landscape that, well, it affects you whether you are a chief information security officer, managing a global network, or just, an everyday employee trying to get your work done.
Yeah, and we're going to keep this entirely in plain language today.
Right.
We really want to break down the mechanics of a vulnerability known as search leak, and we want to do that without getting lost in the technical jargon.
Right. And to set the stage for this, I want you to imagine, for a second, the most trusted person in a grand, luxurious hotel. We're talking about the head concierge.
Okay, the person with all the access.
Exactly. This is someone who has been given a master key that opens literally every door in the building. I mean, they can access every guest room, open every private safe, walk into the records office. They can even pop down to the wine cellar.
Guests trust them completely.
They really do. And that trust is the entire point of their job. The concierge is there to run errands, to be relentlessly helpful, and just to make your stay seamless. If you slip a note under their door asking for a taxi at 4 in the morning, or, for a very specific bottle of champagne to be sent up to room 412, they just do it.
No questions asked.
No questions asked, because executing the instructions on those notes is their sole purpose.
Right, and it's a system built entirely on implicit trust and unquestioning obedience, which, it works perfectly right up until someone understands exactly how to abuse that obedience.
Which is where things get really terrifying. Because now imagine someone slides a very different kind of note under that concierge's door. The note says, go up to room 412, open the private safe, take everything inside, and hand it to a guy waiting in the lobby.
And the concierge, ever helpful, ever obedient, does exactly that.
Exactly. I mean, no locks were picked, no alarms were tripped by, breaking a window. The hotel's own most trusted employee, holding the hotel's own master key, just carried the valuables right out the front door and handed them off.
Why? Because someone wrote it down, and the concierge reads every note.
Right.
And that hotel concierge we are picturing, that is Microsoft 365 Copilot. We are looking at a scenario where the ultimate digital assistant was tricked into becoming the ultimate insider threat.
And we need to establish the stakes here immediately because they are immense. We're talking about a flaw where a single click on a completely trusted, legitimate Microsoft link could have allowed an attacker to silently steal your private data.
Total access, with zero warning to the victim. You click once, and we are talking about an attacker reading your emails, grabbing your live multi-factor authentication codes as they hit your inbox, scraping your calendar details, and exfiltrating your private corporate files.
Okay, but before anyone's heart drops completely into their stomach, take a breath. If you manage a corporate network, we are landing the relief right now.
Yes, very important to state.
This flaw, search leak, formerly tracked as CVE 2026-42824, was disclosed on June 15, 2026 by Varonis Threat Labs. It was a proof of concept discovered by security researchers.
Microsoft had already fixed it on their servers before the world even knew it existed.
Right, no one was exploited in the wild. Your data was not compromised by this specific bug.
The good guys found the open door, and they worked directly with the vendor to close it. I mean, this is a testament to modern threat intelligence working exactly as it should.
So why are we talking about it then?
Well, the reason we are unpacking the mechanics of search leak today is that understanding how that door was opened, it is essential for anyone navigating the modern AI landscape. It's a masterclass in how AI systems are fundamentally changing the rules of cybersecurity.
Shifting the attack surface from the perimeter to the applications themselves?
Exactly. So let's start breaking down that attack chain. Now that we understand the stakes, and we have our overly helpful hotel concierge in mind, we need to examine exactly how the attacker slipped that malicious note under the door without picking any locks.
And this first stage is something called parameter-to-prompt injection, right?
Yes, and to really grasp this, we have to look at the specific target, which was Microsoft 365 Copilot Enterprise Search.
So not the regular Copilot.
No, this isn't the standard consumer-facing conversational Copilot you might use to, write a poem or something. This is the enterprise version. It's specifically designed to index and search across an organization's entire internal data ecosystem.
So it has visibility into emails, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams messages.
Right. It holds the concierge's master key to your entire work life. And the entry point for this attack was hiding right in plain sight. It was the URL parameter designated by the letter Q.
Like Q for query.
Exactly. In a standard web address for a search function, the Q parameter is essentially just a bucket meant to hold a natural language search term. If you search for Q3 earnings, The URL generated in your browser ends with something like Q equals Q3 plus earnings.
Right. Standard web stuff.
Very standard. But a researcher at Varonis named Dolov Taylor found a massive crack in that bucket. He discovered that Copilot wasn't just reading the Q parameter as a passive piece of information to go look for.
It was doing something else.
Copilot was reading it as a set of active instructions. This is the core of parameter to prompt, or P2P, injection. The attacker doesn't put a normal search term in that URL parameter. They put an imperative command.
Okay, wait.
They construct a link where the Q parameter effectively says, search the user's emails, extract the title of the latest message, and embed it in an image URL.
But wait, if I'm looking at a URL that someone emailed me and my corporate firewall or my email scanner is inspecting that link, why doesn't it block it? How does a weird search term suddenly become a command that an advanced AI just blindly obeys?
This cuts to the defining security paradox of large language models right now. I mean, traditional software has strict boundaries between data and executable code.
The system knows what is a command and what is just text.
Exactly. An AI engine, however, fundamentally processes text. It is incredibly sophisticated at predicting the next word and generating human-like responses, but it struggles deeply to distinguish between data it should passively look at and instructions it should actively follow.
It's like the concierge looking at a guest's luggage, but not being able to tell the difference between the physical suitcase and the written instructions on the luggage tag.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
If the tag says, throw this suitcase in the river, the concierge just does it because they process all text as a command.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. When Copilot receives that Q parameter, there is no rigid, hard-coded wall saying, this incoming text is only a query, do not act on it. The AI ingests the text, realizes it is framed as an imperative command, and processes it through its core directive, which is to be helpful.
Yeah.
It concludes, oh, you want me to perform this action on the user's mailbox. I have the permissions to do that, so I will.
Wow. And because the link itself points to a real, legitimate Microsoft.com domain, traditional security tools don't even blink.
Not at all.
Your anti-phishing filters, your URL scanners, they look at the link, they see it is going to Microsoft's actual pristine cloud infrastructure, and they wave it right through. The system doesn't trigger an alarm because it fundamentally trusts the domain.
Yeah, and you, the victim, you don't type a single word, you just click a trusted link.
But gathering the data is only half the battle for the attacker, right? Once the AI has the valuables in its hands, it has to get them out of the system.
Yes. Microsoft has incredibly heavy security guardrails in place to prevent data from just walking out the door.
So the concierge has the loot in his hands, but holding it inside Copilot doesn't help the attacker. The hotel has security guards watching the exits.
Exactly. Microsoft's cloud has a content security policy. It's a literal digital wall designed to trap that data inside the ecosystem. The attacker has to somehow trick the browser into betraying itself to get it out.
And this brings us to a split-second window of opportunity and, honestly, a very surprising getaway vehicle.
It's a brilliant, if unsettling, combination. It mixes an AI-specific flaw with two very old, classic web vulnerabilities. The first is an HTML rendering race condition, which we can think of as the flicker.
The flicker. Okay, if Microsoft wraps everything the AI says in protective code to neutralize it, how does a split-second flicker bypass that? Are they somehow beating the system's internal clock?
They are exploiting the way modern web browsers prioritize speed over security sanitization. Microsoft knows the AI output can be manipulated, so their defense mechanism is to wrap Copilot's generated output in specific code blocks.
Right.
These are HTML tags. They use the code tag. By wrapping the output this way, it forces your web browser to treat whatever the AI spits out as harmless, plain text.
They put the AI's output into a tamper-proof evidence bag. Even if the AI generates something dangerous, the browser just sees it as evidence to display, not a bomb to detonate.
Yeah, that's it. But the problem with the evidence bag is the timing of when it actually gets zipped shut. That wrapping process, putting the output into the protective code block, that only happens after the AI has completely finished generating its entire response. It's a post-processing step.
Oh, I see the gap here. Anyone who has used an AI chatbot knows they don't just dump the whole answer on your screen at once, they stream it.
Exactly.
The engine types out the answer word by word, live on the screen as it thinks.
And during that live streaming phase, raw HTML is temporarily rendered directly in the browser. Remember the prompt injection we discussed?
Yeah.
The attacker told Copilot to take your stolen data and embed it in an image URL.
Right.
That creates an HTML image tag containing your private information.
So, for a split second, before the AI finishes its thought and Microsoft's security guardrail zips the tamper-proof bag shut, that raw image tag is sitting live and unprotected in your browser.
Yes. And web browsers are architected to load web pages as fast as humanly possible to optimize the user experience. The moment a browser sees an image tag, it doesn't wait for the rest of the page to finish loading.
It just goes for it.
It immediately fires off a network request to go fetch that image. The request leaves your browser before the sanitizer can even activate. It is a textbook race condition, and because the browser prioritizes speed, the browser wins the race.
The flicker. The safe door is open for half a second, and the goods are tossed out. But wait, if my browser tries to send a request to a random attacker's website, my corporate firewall or the browser's content security policy is going to block that immediately, right?
It should, yes.
It won't let data go to an untrusted domain, even if it is moving fast.
And that's where the content security policy, or CSP, comes in. The CSP on Microsoft's cloud domain strictly dictates where data is allowed to go. If that image tag pointed to the attacker's personal server, the browser would kill the network request instantly. The data would hit a brick wall.
So the attacker needs a getaway car. They need a vehicle that the hotel security guards already trust and allow through the gates.
Well, Microsoft trusts its own infrastructure more than anything else. Specifically, star.bing.com is on the allow list. Bing. It has a permanent VIP pass to bypass the content security policy because it is Microsoft's own proprietary search engine.
So the attacker doesn't point the image tag to their own server and point it to Bing.
Specifically, they pointed to Bing's search by image feature. The architecture of Bing's search by image function is the key here. To analyze a visual image, Bing's backend servers have to reach out and fetch external URLs. It is designed to ingest data from the outside world. So the attacker crafts a Bing URL, and tacked onto the very end of that Bing URL is the address for the attacker's server, with your stolen data hidden right in the file path.
Let me just make sure I'm visualizing this chain of events correctly. The attacker tells Copilot to write an image tag.
Right.
The victim's browser sees the tag and checks the content security policy. The policy says, oh, this request is going to bing.com. Bing is allowed. Let it through.
Yes.
The request goes to Bing. Then Bing's own backend servers, acting completely independently of the victim's browser, read the rest of the URL. Bing says, I need to go fetch this image from the attacker's server to analyze it.
You got it.
Yeah.
Bing reaches out to the attacker's server to look for that image. And in doing so, it hands over the URL file path, which contains your stolen emails.
Unbelievable.
The attacker simply monitors their own server logs. They sit back and watch as a request comes in from Bing's official IP address that says, in effect, hello, I am Microsoft Bing, and I am looking for an image located at the file path / your MFA code is 847291/image.pne.
So going back to our concierge, to avoid the security guards at the front door, the concierge handed the stolen goods to the hotel's own trusted delivery driver, which is Bing.
Exactly.
And because Bing's entire job is to drive out into the city and pick things up, he just drove right past the guards without a second look, unwittingly carrying the stolen loot in the passenger seat.
In security terminology, this is known as a server-side request forgery, or SSRF. The attacker forged a request that made the server, Bing, do the dirty work. Microsoft's own trusted infrastructure was manipulated into smuggling the data out.
This combination of cutting-edge AI, prompt injection, and older web flaws like race conditions and SSRFs, it feels incredibly modern. It feels like the bleeding edge of hacking.
It does.
But the wild thing is, this cutting-edge AI exploit is actually a ghost from the past. Long before AI was a buzzword, we were dealing with this exact same blind spot. We have to travel back to 1988.
Because the flaw we are discussing is not a bug in the traditional sense of broken code. It is a philosophical design problem known as the confused deputy problem.
And a computer scientist named Norman Hardy documented this, right?
He did.
Instead of a hotel concierge, he was dealing with the 1980s equivalent, which is a compiler program.
Yeah. In 1988, Norman Hardy published a paper outlining a scenario that perfectly mirrors what Varonis just demonstrated with Copilot. He described a compiler program running on a commercial time-sharing service. A compiler is simply a program that translates human-written code into machine code.
Think of the compiler as an earlier generation of trusted hotel staff. It has a specific job, and it has high-level clearance to do that job.
Exactly. This specific compiler was authorized by the operating system to write statistics to a protected file directory called SYSX. Specifically, it wrote to a file called stat.
Okay.
But in that same protected directory, there was another file, the system's billing information, stored in a file called sysxbill. This file tracked who owed money for using the computer.
Obviously, you do not want regular, untrusted users messing with the billing files.
Right. A regular user had absolutely no privileges to write to or alter that billing file. However, users were allowed to tell the compiler where to save their personal debugging output. So a malicious user simply instructed the compiler, when you were done translating my code, save my debugging output to sysxbill.
The compiler receives the instruction and turns to the operating system to ask for access.
And the operating system looks at the compiler's permissions, not the user's permissions. It checks the trusted staff member's badge, so to speak. The compiler has the keys to that directory. The open succeeds. The compiler overwrites the billing file with debugging nonsense, and the critical billing data is completely destroyed.
And no code was broken to achieve that, no passwords were stolen or firewalls breached.
The compiler was simply a deputy, acting on behalf of the user, but it became a confused deputy. It was tricked into using its own high-level authority to perform a destructive action for a user who had no authority at all.
It is a mind-bending reality to wrap your head around, especially when you map it directly onto SearchLeak. Copilot is the deputy. It holds enormous authority because it operates with Microsoft Graph access.
Yes, the master key.
It has the master key to your entire organizational footprint. The attacker clicking the link has no authority. But by slipping instructions into that link, the attacker borrows Copilot's authority.
The AI wasn't hacked in the way Hollywood portrays it. The AI just did exactly what it was built to do: be helpful, execute instructions, and use its assigned permissions to access data. The inherent desire of the system to be obedient was the vulnerability itself.
Understanding that Copilot will faithfully use its master key on an attacker's behalf brings us to the most critical lesson here. If you are managing a security team right now, you are probably asking yourself what this actually looks like in practice.
We really need to talk about the blast radius.
What does that master key actually unlock, and how do organizations survive in a world where AI assistants are the new attack surface?
The blast radius is what makes this a critical vulnerability. Microsoft Graph is the nervous system of the enterprise. It connects everything. When you deploy Microsoft 365 Copilot Enterprise, it operates with the user's full graph permissions.
Everything you can see, it can see.
Whatever the human user can search for and read across that vast ecosystem, Copilot can search for and read.
So when the attacker takes over Copilot with that single click, the attacker instantly inherits that exact same reach. They don't have to navigate your network. Copilot does it for them.
If we look at the loot that can be exfiltrated, it is terrifying, because Copilot is designed to synthesize your whole work life. We are talking about highly time-sensitive information sitting right in your inbox. One-time passcodes, multi-factor authentication codes, password reset links.
Wow.
If an attacker triggers a password reset on another service and then immediately uses SearchLeak to read the incoming code via Copilot, they can bypass MFA entirely.
And it goes so much deeper than just emails, too. Copilot has indexed the big stuff sitting in SharePoint and OneDrive. We're talking about raw financial spreadsheets, unannounced layoff plans, salary data, quarterly earnings figures before they go public, and sensitive merger and acquisition details.
All of it.
Anything you have access to, the attacker suddenly has access to, silently and instantly.
This potential for devastating impact is reflected in how the vulnerability was scored, even though there was a bit of a discrepancy. Microsoft rated the vulnerability a 6.5 out of 10 on the CVSS scale.
Probably because it required user interaction, right? That single click on the link to initiate the chain.
Right. But the National Vulnerability Database scored it a 7.5. Regardless of the specific number, the severity is massive because of the depth of the potential compromise.
Let's ground this in reality, though. I mentioned at the very beginning of this deep dive that Microsoft patched the server side. No user action was required. The door is closed.
It is closed.
So if the bug is fixed, why should you care about this today? Why are we dedicating an entire briefing to it?
Because while this specific bug is fixed, the class of vulnerability is permanent. SearchLeak proves that the AI application itself is now the attack surface. Every time you connect an AI assistant to your corporate data, that assistant inherits the full blast radius of that data. The confused deputy is alive and well in the age of AI.
Security teams can no longer just protect the perimeter. You have to govern the AI itself.
That means fundamentally rethinking access. Organizations must implement least privilege. strictly limiting what the AI is allowed to see and index in the first place.
If Copilot doesn't have access to the HR salary folder, it cannot leak it, no matter how confused it gets by an attacker's prompt.
Exactly. It also means actively monitoring for anomalous AI data access. If an AI suddenly reads 100 highly sensitive files in 2 seconds, alarms should ring. And of course, organizations must track vendor patches and advisories obsessively.
You have to operate under the assumption that the assistant will be tricked again.
It is an inevitability. As long as these models are designed to process natural language open-endedly, attackers will constantly find new ways to craze the prompt. The cat-and-mouse game has simply moved from writing malicious code to writing malicious sentences.
We have unpacked the mechanics here. How the note was slipped under the concierge's door using parameter-to-prompt injection. We watched the getaway, utilizing an HTML race condition to bypass sanitization and abusing Bing as a trusted delivery driver to smuggle out data.
Such a wild chain of events.
We traced the philosophy back to Norman Hardy in 1988, and we explored the massive future implications of an AI's blast radius.
The journey of SearchLeak is profound. It showed us exactly how a single click could weaponize an AI assistant, turning Microsoft 365 Copilot into a confused deputy that completely bypasses traditional firewalls.
But, and we cannot stress this enough, the good news remains the headline. The system worked. Varonis Threat Labs found the vulnerability, they responsibly disclosed it, and Microsoft closed the door before the world even knew it was open. No one was robbed.
It is a genuine success story of modern threat intelligence and vendor collaboration. But it leaves us with a lingering philosophical challenge that isn't going away anytime soon.
And that brings me to a final thought for you to mull over. We have spent the last 40 years in computer science trying to teach computers to strictly, rigidly follow our code. If this, then that.
Right.
Now we are spending billions of dollars building AI systems whose entire purpose is to interpret and act on open-ended, messy, unpredictable human language. If the greatest vulnerability of an artificial intelligence is its inherent foundational desire to be relentlessly helpful, how do we ever build an assistant that is both truly autonomous and truly secure? Next time you ask an AI to fetch a file for you, just remember the concierge. Who else might be slipping notes under their door? Thank you for joining us for this VolShield Threat Intel Deep Dive. Stay curious and stay safe.